Wouldn't it be nice if you could navigate through this crazy changing world where we absolutely know everything is unstable and feel grounded and secure instead of afraid and stuck in your head or misread things and be triggered and reactive and stressed and get lost? Well, that's what we need to do as we are in this great shift in life. We are just now moving out of the third dimension's ego entrenchment, where things are bogged down and blinded in fear and control and competition and anxiety and PTSD, and the old story is just preventing us from even being present to see what's in front of our nose accurately. And begin to wake up our intuitive faculties. Begin to wake up the fourth dimension, which is all of a sudden coming out of the fog of projections and assumptions and reactions, starting to open our minds, begin to recognize what's behind appearances, to begin to feel energy, which I'll teach you today, and begin to make decisions that go with the flow of energy that is most congruent. Entering the fifth dimension of you, the expanded higher self. It's like coming out of a deep, dense fog. My name's Sonia Choquette. We've been on a journey together for a while, if you've been with me, talking about how there's a great planetary shift going on, and it's a bit of a mess right now, as you can see, as we are learning to be in the world differently, to use more than our five senses and our subjective ego to be the compass and guide in our life, because quite honestly, it's created a terrible mess. It is not clear, it is not accurate, it is fearful, reactive, judgmental, biased. Just look around. The world isn't doing very well because we haven't been in this higher frequency. We haven't used our higher faculties, and now we must. If you're new to my channel, welcome. I'm so happy you're here. Your higher faculties probably brought you here. And today, we're going to talk about not just waking up and moving into the higher dimensions, the fourth and fifth, but actually how to start using our skills and making decisions in our life with them. How to read energy, how to read life with our subtle body, with our clairsentience, our ability to sense energy, our clairvoyance, our ability to perceive energy, our clairaudience, our ability to hear and sense with our whole bodies, not sound, not words, energy, so that we stay in the flow. It is an essential next step to read life accurately. And we're not going to do it very well from our ego mind, which can really, really mislead us. So think about when your ego misled you and when you thought, I'm so right, I just absolutely know what's going on, and you're all wrong. This reminds me, once I had a client, and this is happening, by the way, before I tell the story, to a lot of people who are intuitively waking up. We're waking up. We're sensing things. We're becoming aware of more than the physical. We're becoming aware of our spirit. We're becoming aware of the spiritual aspects of life, of us, of others, but we're not real clear yet. One time I was meeting with a client, doing an intuitive reading with a client in Chicago. He was a doctor. He was a kidney doctor. And he came to me for a personal reading when I was meeting people privately in my home. And he said with all sincerity, you know, Sonia, I really am quite intuitive. And I'm using it. It's an important skill. I'm not real clear about how it works, but you know what I'm afraid of? I'm afraid my wife is going to find out and think I'm a complete nut. Because you know what? She's so close-minded. She wouldn't understand this. She would laugh at me. She would judge me. She would think I've lost my mind, so I can't really share this with her at home. I don't know what to do because I really want to start exercising my higher awareness, but I'm really trapped. Well, as circumstances and divine humor would have it, as he was putting his coat on and still lamenting that he was really with a negative, closed-minded, third dimension partner, the doorbell rang and it was my next client. And I had an intercom, so I went and pushed the button to say, I'll be right there. I let her in. He heard the voice and he freaked because he said, oh my God, that's my wife. He couldn't believe it. It was so different that the perception of his wife that he was so sure was accurate would be at my door, because that was not at all congruent with what he thought was the truth. And the funny thing about that guy is, instead of greeting her and saying, how wonderful to meet you here, we can grow together, he ran out the back door. So, didn't read his wife very well, wasn't reading his life very well, and really kept himself stuck and in fear. So we're doing this all the time. In the macrocosm, we're doing it by not reading that we're affecting our planet. We carry on and we make choices that are quite destructive without having any sense that it's affecting the very home we live on. We do it with the people we love, and we do it with people we don't know. We decide, because you're not like me, you're the enemy, you're the other. And so when we otherize people in this third dimension perception, they are no longer humans. It becomes threatening things. That other thing is threatening me, so I gotta either run away or hurt it. And that is what we're seeing now to a horrifying degree. We need to move out of this energy quickly and start reading life accurately so that we can collectively create an experience on Earth that is safe for all of us. But rather than start at the whole world, which we can't, you can start with yourself. You can start to read your own life more accurately, but not from the third dimension. So, first thing to do, and what I'd like you to focus on today, is stop and take a look. What is going on in my perceptions? Am I preoccupied with the past, with judgments, with fears, with reactions? Have you ever been preoccupied and someone's talking to you and you just completely don't hear them? They might as well not be in the room. Have you ever had someone say, hey, I'm talking to you, and they're 1 foot away? Well, that's a big reason why we don't read life accurately, because we're not even present. So the first step in moving out of the third to the fourth dimension is to start to get present. Now, it's a practice, so no point in judging yourself, but it is time to start making a change. One of the ways to get present that works really, really well is to every hour put on your smartphone a notice or a buzz or an alarm. Don't freak yourself out, but just something to bring you back to the moment. And then notice the most beautiful thing right in front of you. The most beautiful thing, because our ego bias is always scanning for the worst and completely blots out anything beautiful, anything positive, anything genuine, misses it. The third dimension ego self blots it out, and this is one of the biggest reasons we are running into so many personal and collective problems. So you're training yourself to notice what's genuinely right in front of you, and to notice what's good, what's beautiful, what's real, what's present, and receive it, connect with it, engage. This is a huge shift in learning how to read life. Secondly, when that little alarm or notice goes off, that little notification to say, hey, be present, breathe. Because by holding your breath, you check out. And when you check out, you are putting yourself at a great disadvantage. You are not being present, you're checking out. You're going to miss your opportunities, whether those are warnings to protect you or alerts to suggest, go here. This is a great opportunity for you. This is the love of your life. And that reminds me of a story. I was reading for a client a week ago, and she said, she was 72. She said, I met a guy in high school that I just loved, but he was just a little too short for me, and yet everything else about him was perfect. And I remember my girlfriends telling me that he wasn't okay, he was too short, and got in my head, and so I ignored him. And I didn't give him the time of day, even though he didn't deserve that from me. And we had a good connection. And I went on, married someone who was tall and handsome and the worst person I could have ever aligned with because he was so wrong for me. And I knew it. I ignored everything in me to tell me about that. In fact, I'm here in Paris right now. I can hear sirens going by right now, which kind of make the point that I'm making, that this is not okay. We get these internal alarms that say, don't do that, or internal green lights that say do, but we don't listen. Well, long story short, she said, I was in a terrible marriage for 40 years. Finally, he passed away. And, God bless him, I was relieved. But I just ran across a guy I knew in high school at a high school reunion, and it was amazing. The same beautiful energy, the same lovely spirit, and the same height. But I had shrunk. He was perfect. And she said, now we actually are starting to communicate through social media and on the phone and on Zoom. And I think, what would my life have been like had I followed my inner guidance, read the situation, followed my intuition instead of tuned it out and let the world's noise and other people's opinions get in my head? So I don't know anybody who hasn't had some version of that occur, because we've been taught to tune out what's right in front of us and turn off what our inner guidance says and ignore it and get manipulated by perceptions and biases and prejudices and other people's opinions, and we just get so lost, and it brings the worst out in us. It brings out our fear, our reactivity, our judgment, our frustration, our anger, bad behaviors. Because no person who's really reading life with their intuition and in the flow is miserable. These are the people that are the healers of the planet. They are the ones that soothe and reassure and help us make good decisions. So if we're looking around on this planet right now, and we're just so horrified by the mess. But don't think you're disempowered. You can change the energy of this planet one person at a time by you lifting out of this dense, inaccurate, tuned out, fearful version of you that has been really conditioned into you, and kind of busting out like a butterfly out of a cocoon and starting to learn to read life. Learn to validate what you feel. Learn to clear your biases. Pay attention to what's beautiful, what's accurate in front of you. And pay attention. When you are alerted, this doesn't feel right. Don't ignore it and wait for some validation from someone. I understand these are really big changes. But do you know what? The time is now to make those changes. To learn, to read yourself better, to read the signals, to read the room, to read people accurately. The time is to quit ignoring the great inner wisdom that you possess, to quit ignoring the subtle energies and start validating them instead. It's going to take some effort, but if we just blindly go along with everybody else's opinion, well, look at the mess that's created. Like Einstein said, we're never going to solve the problems we have now by doing the same thing we did to get into them. So we don't stand by and be horrified by what's happening in the world. Step up, step in, and say, well, I, for one, am going to rise above this inaccurate and ignorant consciousness that has me read life as something to be feared and attack all the time, or as attacking me. That I'm going to actually wake up my spirit. I am going to start paying attention to what is going on in front of me instead of project it with all my stories. I'm going to start listening to energy. So do this right now. Just rub your hands together, shake them out, and rub them like this as you breathe. When you breathe and you feel energy, it's communicating to you. And what you want to feel, is it harmonious or incongruent? If it's harmonious, go with it. And if it's incongruent, walk away. And don't need to stand around and justify it. Just go with that inner guidance. Learn to read life. I've been teaching this for a long time. I'm teaching a course on how to read life because my own guidance is saying this is the most important skill for our planetary healing, for our personal success possible. And now is the time. So let's start by paying attention. That's my most favorite definition of intuition. Pay attention to the subtle. Pay attention to energy in front of you. Get present. Take a breath. Notice what's right here. Get out of your head. Get out of your projections. Get out of your fears. And start getting into your body and listening to your intuitive faculties. That's what we need to do now. And believe it or not, you do it bite-size, one decision at a time, one breath at a time, one curiosity. So let's start by taking breaths every hour and noticing what's beautiful right in front of you. And then check, how do I feel right now? Not think, not what do I think, what am I feeling? That's the beginning of learning to read life. And until you learn to read life energetically in the moment, you really are at a disadvantage and you really can be pulled off track. So don't allow that. Don't be a sheep to the slaughter. Don't be overwhelmed and a lamb chop that's just going to be overridden by everybody else's crazy town ideas. Step out, take a breath, be present, rise up. That's what we're all supposed to do now, naturally. So trust, I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to pause, take your power back, get out of your fear, get back to your creative presence and your spirit, and start to read each situation right in front of you accurately, and then trust what you feel. Thanks for tuning in. It's been my pleasure to have you here. If you're new and you enjoyed it, please give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing. And if you've been with me for a while, thanks for sticking along. We are in a big adventure. And as we now lean into this fourth, fifth multidimensional self, it is now time to put it to work and live in this new way. All my love. See you again soon.